BH17 Flight. Bernice lay stretched out on her bed, snoring lightly, her notebook in her lap, the half-empty wine bottle on the wooden table beside her bed. She awoke suddenly with the feeling that something had disturbed her. There was a vague memory of a cry, a thud, something rolling across the floor. Was it real, or had she dreamed it? She realized the room was in semi-darkness. She must have dozed for quite some time. There was a tap on the door. "Come in," she called. The door opened, and Romana appeared, carrying a smokily burning oil lamp. She looked around the room, put the lamp on the table, and sat on the room's single wooden chair. "Ah, that it?" she said amiably. Bernice struggled to a sitting position. "Sorry, must have dropped off. How's the conference going?" "Very well, thanks to your contribution. Where did you pick up that extraordinary idea about two linked legislative chambers?" "From a long lecture by the doctor about the political history of his favourite planet. I didn't think I was listening, but some of it must have sunk in." "I think it ticked the balance," said Romana. "You must try to remember some more for tomorrow's session. Are you coming down? I think there's supposed to be some social chit-chat before dinner." "Yes, sure. Just give me a minute." There was a jug of cold water in a basin on the table. Bernice tipped water in, splashed her face and hands, dried them on the rough towel, and dragged a comb through her hair. She wondered how Romana always managed to look so aggravatingly immaculate. Probably licks her paws and washes her face like a cat, she thought. "Okay, I'm ready," she said out loud. They went out of the room, Romana leading the way with the lamp, and saw Tarak coming along the corridor from his room. "Ah, good, there you are," said Romana, with her usual bossiness. "Come along, we'll be—" She broke off, kneeling down and holding the lamp just a little above the floor. They were immediately outside the room between Bernice's and Tarak's room. A trickle of blood was running from underneath the door. "That's Lord Veron's room," said Tarak. "We were talking in there not long ago." He opened the door and they went inside. Romana held the lamp up high, illuminating the room. Veron's head was in the basin on the table beside the bed. Wide eyes stared sightlessly at them, and his mouth was open in a silent scream. His body lay sprawled across the floor, the stump of the neck towards the door. Blood poured in a stream from the severed arteries in the neck, forming a pool beside the bed and sending tendrils of blood out under the door. "Get on the other side of the room," ordered Tarak. "Don't step in the blood." He ripped the blanket from the bed, soaked one end of it in the water from the jug, and swabbed up the trickle of blood in the corridor. Closing the door again, he rolled the blanket and stuffed it along the bottom of the door like a draft excluder. Avoiding the blood, Bernice reached out and took Veron's wrinkled old hand. The body's still warm and the blood's absolutely fresh. This was done just minutes ago. She shuddered, remembering. I was dozing, and something woke me up, a cry, a thud, the sound of something heavy rolling across the floor. "He was killed with this," said Romana. She held out the lamp and pointed to a curved billhook, tossed carelessly in the corner, its curved blade dulled with Veron's blood. She looked at Tarak. "You say you were just talking to him. You didn't disagree on a point of procedure and lop off his head with a billhook I just happened to have about my person? Of course I didn't, you stupid bitch." "Someone did," said Bernice. "Someone who wants the conference to fail. That's not the point, not at the moment. I don't know who killed him, but I know who's going to get the blame for it." Tarak tapped his own chest. "We left the conference together. He was killed with a peasant's weapon. If I'm here when they find the body, Varys will hang me out of hand." "What are you going to do?" asked Bernice. "I'm going straight out of that window, heading back to our HQ, and sending out a call for my men." "But if you run, it'll make everyone sure you killed him," said Bernice. "Don't you want to prove your innocence?" I'll worry about that when I'm safe, my lady. It's hard to put up a good defence when you're dangling from a tree. Romana looked hard at him, but she didn't say anything. I really didn't do it, you know, said Tarak more gently. I liked the old man, and the talks were going well. Do you think I'd still be here if I'd killed him? Romana nodded. What about the rest of your delegation? They both left right after the conference, remember? And Ivo's been downstairs in plain sight all the time. I'll see they're warned. A heavy fist rapped on the door. It rapped again, and a voice called, Lord Veron. It was Captain Varys. Romana handed the lamp to Bernice. Stepping carefully around the pool of blood, she opened the door just a crack, slipped through, and closed it behind her. They heard her voice in the corridor, cool and assured as usual. Less noise, please, Captain. Lord Veron is a little unwell, and has asked that dinner be delayed. He will come down as soon as he feels better. But there are important matters. They must wait, Captain. Lord Veron particularly asked not to be disturbed. Will you give me your escort downstairs? As the two moved away, Bernice heard Romana saying, I don't think there's any real cause for alarm. Lord Veron is no longer young, and it has been a rather tiring day. Bernice turned to Tarak and found that he'd already disappeared, presumably out of the open window. Great, she thought. They'll clear off and leave me with the headless corpse. Now what? She considered following Tarak, but it didn't seem right to just abandon Romana. Trying not to look at the severed head in the basin, she stepped carefully around the pool of blood and slipped out the door, trying to disturb the folded blanket as little as possible, and went back to her room. The first thing to do was to change, she thought. There was no way she was going on the run in a little black cocktail dress. Stripping it off, she climbed back into the familiar comfort of trousers, work shirt, safari jacket and boots, and immediately felt much more herself. She looked longingly at her pack, but decided she daren't take it. Instead, she rifled it for everything that might be useful, stuffing everything into the many pockets of her jacket. Picking up the lamp, she started on her way downstairs. There was still a damp patch outside Veron's door, but there didn't seem to be any more blood, not yet. The inn's big main room was lit by several lamps, and she found Romana chatting to Varys and Yavin by the fire. They all greeted her, and Yavin gave her an inquiring look. Not leaving us, my lady? How could I bear to do that, said Bernice, despising herself for the mock flirtatiousness in her tone. No, it's just that I heard dinner will be delayed, so I thought I'd go for a walk. Can I persuade you to join me, Lady Romana? Romana hesitated, just long enough to give the impression of someone being landed with a rather tiresome social chore. Of course, I'd be delighted. Why don't we all go? Suggested Yavin. Please don't trouble yourselves, said Romana firmly. I'm sure you don't really want to leave the wine and the fire. We'd best wait here for Lord Veron, said Varys. I'm sure he'll be coming down soon. With his head tucked underneath his arm, thought Bernice, and realised she was getting hysterical. I don't advise you to wander too far afield, not after dark, said Varys. I'll detail some of my men to escort you. No need for that, said Bernice hastily. We're just going to take a quick stroll around the inn. We'll be back with you in no time. Yavin made a great business of helping Romana into her hooded cloak, settling it attentively around her shoulders. Romana and Bernice went out into the darkness. I thought we'd never get out of there, said Bernice. Come on, let's get going. Going where? No idea. I thought you'd know that. Away from here, that's all. Romana stopped moving. I'm not so sure I want to go anywhere, she said with exasperating calm. Even though you're a murder suspect? Nonsense. They'll all think Tarak's guilty. You really are just like the doctor, aren't you? Am I? You both think you can talk your way out of anything. Well, you can't. They'll think we're all guilty, you most of all. You were seen by Varys coming out of Veren's room. The murder could have happened after that. Bernice felt like shaking her. Oh, don't be so daft. With a brutal murder like this, everyone's going to be too angry to pay any attention to logic. You're involved and you'll be suspected. So will I, just by being there. Pretty soon, someone's going to find Veren's body. If it's not found by accident, the murderer will find it on purpose. After that, it'll simply be a case of round up the usual suspects. Romana still didn't look convinced. Bernice added the clincher. Do you really want to be interrogated by Yavin? I'm sure he'd enjoy it, but I doubt if you would. Perhaps you're right. The decision taken, Romana became her old bossy self. I must find Ivo and warn him. Then we'd better join Tarek at his HQ. We'll be as safe there as anywhere until things cool down a bit. My horse is in the stables, and most of my things are still in the saddlebags. Can you ride? After a fashion, if I had a horse. We'll have to borrow one for you. Wait here. Romana disappeared through the back door of the inn. Bernice waited nervously, shivering in the night air. After what seemed like far too long a time, Romana reappeared. I've warned Ivo he's going to join us when he can. Come on, let's not hang about chattering. Romana strode off towards the stables. Bernice followed, muttering curses under her breath. There was no one about at the stables, and Romana led out her grey mare. It nuzzled her affectionately. Pick a nice quiet one for yourself, she ordered. Defiantly, Bernice picked Varys's black stallion. Romana finished saddling her mare, strapped on the saddlebag, and came to help Bernice finish saddling the stallion. It whickered and stamped its feet. Romana swung lightly into the saddle. Are you sure you can manage that beast? In a dignified silence, Bernice scrambled onto the stallion. It reared and threw her off into a pile of straw. Romana sighed and slid down from the saddle. She caught the stallion, soothed it, patted its nose, and breathed into its nostrils. The stallion calmed down and stood meekly waiting. Bernice picked herself up, and Romana handed back the reins. He'll be all right now. Come on. A guard came around the corner of the stables and stopped short in amazement. It's all right, said Romana brightly. We're just going for a little ride. After dark, and that's the captain's horse. So it is, said Bernice, and handed him the reins. As he stood holding them, she slipped round behind him, took her blaster from her pocket, and slugged him hard behind the ear. Grabbing back the reins as he fell, Bernice climbed back onto the black stallion. Romana was already in the saddle. They galloped away towards the darkened woods. Back at the inn, time dragged past slowly. Yavin and Varys had long ago run out of polite conversation. The two women didn't come back from their walk, and Lord Veren didn't come down from his room. Lord Veren's cook said if the dinner was delayed much longer, it would be a disaster. At last, Varys said, Perhaps I'd better go up. Lord Veren might be more ill than we think. He may indeed, said Yavin. Varys picked up a lamp and made his way upstairs. Yavin stood staring into the fire, sipping his wine and waiting. He heard a terrible, choked cry, raced upstairs, and found Varys, white-faced and horror-struck, holding up the lamp in the doorway of Veren's room. Yavin turned and ran to Tarek's room, glanced inside, and returned to Varys. Tarek has gone. He did this. Come on, man! He led the way downstairs. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, a bruised guard staggered into the room. The women have gone, Captain. One of them took your horse. They've all gone, said Yavin savagely. Tarek, the woman, the two others, a clean sweep. He grabbed Varys by the shoulder. "Don't you see, Captain? This whole conference was a trap, a trick to destroy us. We're lucky we're still alive. We must find them before they kill more of us." "These peasant scum have headquarters in the wastelands," said Varys hoarsely. "It was secret once, but everyone knows where it is now. That's where they'll be. We must find them and burn them out." "How many men have you, Captain?" "A full company. It'll have to do. If we strike quickly—" Yarvan looked round. "Where's that damned landlord? He must be in this too." But Ivo was nowhere to be found. To her surprise, Bernice found herself enjoying the mad gallop through the night. There was something exhilarating about it, in a loony kind of way. They rode through the dark woods, crouched low in the saddle to avoid lashing branches, and across the rough, broken ground of the wasteland. It was a difficult and dangerous ride, and Bernice had to fight to stay in the saddle. Ahead of her, Romana's grey mare flitted sure-footed through the darkness. At last they cantered up to the mound that concealed what had once been the headquarters of the peasant resistance movement. The usually hidden doors stood open, and light flooded out from the tunnel entrance. Romana reined in the mare and jumped down. A little more slowly, Bernice did the same. Letting the reins dangle, they left the horses and moved slowly down the brightly lit tunnel. "I can't understand it being left open," said Romana. "It's not particularly secret these days, more of a museum. But Kalmar is always so careful with his precious machinery." At the end of the tunnel, Bernice found the circular chamber to which she'd first been brought as a captive. It looked very different now. The place was ruined, wrecked, ravaged, as if a hurricane had been raging inside the underground chamber. The whole room was littered with scattered clothes and papers, shattered furniture, smashed and twisted fragments of machinery. It seemed as if nothing had been left whole or in its proper place. They picked their way across the room, looking round them. "Kalmar!" called Romana. There was no reply. "His room's over here," she said, and led the way to the sectioned-off part of the dome. Kalmar was there, staring up at the ceiling. His old body had been hacked and stabbed and sliced with maniacal frenzy until his once white robe was soaked with red. In a final savage gesture, a sword had been thrust through his heart, pinning him to the floor. It was a long sword with an ornately jewelled handle, the kind of a sword worn only by lords. They heard movement behind them and saw Tarek running across the ruined room. He came up to the alcove and stared down at Kalmar's body. "No," he whispered. "No." For a few minutes, Tarek knelt beside the old man's body, struggling to control his feelings. Then he pulled aside Kalmar's bed to reveal a concealed hatchway. "At least they didn't find this. You'll be avenged, old friend." He lifted the hatch to reveal a power switch. He threw the switch, a light flashed, and a low, regular electronic tone pulsed through the room like a drumbeat. "What is that thing?" asked Bernice. Tarek looked at her with unnaturally bright eyes. "It's an alarm signal, a war drum. There's one like it in every Resistance HQ for miles around. Everyone who hears it will arm himself and come here. When they arrive, we'll march on the village and kill every lord and every soldier we can find." It was quite clear that it was no use talking to Tarek. Bernice took Romana's arm and drew her aside. "Does it strike you there's something familiar about all this?" "Is there?" said Romana impassively. "It's a replay of the earlier murder, only in reverse. First, a much-loved lord is slaughtered with a weapon that shouts peasant. Now, an equally loved peasant leader butchered with a sword used only by lords. Go on? We're pretty sure the peasants didn't kill Veren. I don't think the lords killed Kalmar either." "Then who did?" "I think The same person is behind both deaths. Someone who wants to set the two sides at each other's throats. I think you're right. In fact, I know you're right. The doctor knows it too. That's why we're both here. Deep in the forest, a tall, cloaked figure stood with arms outstretched, savouring and increasing the waves of hate and anger and bloodlust that swirled around it. At the inn, angry soldiers prepared to set off. Yavin had paraded them before Veren's body, and they were filled with the lust to kill. At the rebel HQ, silent, angry men were gathering, hiding weapons beneath their cloaks. One by one, Tarak took them to see Kalmar's broken, blood-soaked body, and the fire for revenge burned in every man's heart. Not far away, dark creatures were stirring. Wars and policies meant nothing to them. They were simply eager to slake the bloodlust that was their own. The cloaked being stood for a long time, savouring the feast that was to come. But it was not quite ready. And in another time, and another place, there were other matters to be attended to. Slowly, the tall figure faded away, becoming one with the darkness.